Have you ever looked into the eyes of an elderly person and seen something that words fail to describe? A quiet resignation, a flicker of sadness, a kind of ache that seems too deep, too dignified, and too private to be spoken out loud. This is the silent pain of growing old, a pain that doesn't scream, doesn't ask for sympathy, and rarely finds a voice. It's hidden behind smiles, behind stories of the good old days, behind daily routines that mask a slowly changing reality. And in this video, we're going to talk about it. Not just the obvious signs of aging, but the invisible emotional and psychological layers that often go unnoticed, even by loved ones. Growing old is a journey we all expect to take, yet most of us are never fully prepared for what it brings. Society talks a lot about physical decline, aching joints, slower reflexes, wrinkled skin. But what about the emotional toll? What about waking up and realizing the world has quietly moved on without you? That your name used to mean something, your phone used to ring more, your days used to be busier, louder, fuller? Now, silence sits beside you like an uninvited guest. The phone doesn't ring as often. People you once knew are no longer here. And even when surrounded by others, there's a kind of loneliness that settles into your bones. This isn't self-pity. This is reality. And it needs to be spoken about, because millions of elderly people live in this unspoken shadow every day. They put on brave faces, tell their grandchildren they're doing just fine, but inside, they carry griefs that have no name. The grief of being forgotten, the grief of watching your body betray you, the grief of losing control, not in one big moment, but in tiny, everyday defeats. Maybe you used to cook dinner every night, but now the stove feels unsafe. Maybe you once drove across states without thinking twice, and now even a trip to the grocery store feels overwhelming. It's not just losing abilities, it's losing pieces of your identity. One of the hardest parts of growing old is becoming invisible. People stop asking your opinion. They assume you're out of touch, irrelevant. Technology advances so fast, the world feels less and less like yours. You walk into a room and people talk around you, not to you. You go to a clinic and the doctor speaks to your son or daughter about your health instead of asking you directly. These are small slights, but they add up. They chip away at dignity. And slowly they teach you to withdraw, to stay quiet, to stop trying to be seen. This invisibility isn't about eyesight, it's about value. The painful question that creeps in, am I still needed? And then there's the grief of loss. Not just the loss of people, though that's devastating enough, but the loss of time, of dreams left unfulfilled, of plans that were always meant for someday that never came. You start measuring time not by goals or milestones, but by medications, doctor's visits, and who hasn't called in a while. The days begin to blur, and you wonder if anyone remembers who you were before the gray hair and shaky hands. You may even struggle to remember it yourself. It's not all doom, of course. Aging can be filled with wisdom, reflection, and peace. But that doesn't cancel out the silent pain. If anything, it sharpens it, because with age often comes awareness. You become more sensitive to how fleeting life is, how fragile relationships can be, how little control we truly have over the things that matter most. And that awareness can be both a gift and a burden. A gift because it teaches you to cherish moments. A burden because it reminds you how many of those moments are now gone. The truth is, many elderly people suffer not just from ailments, but from a lack of being heard. They're told to stay positive, count their blessings, not to dwell, and so they bury their pain even deeper. They laugh at jokes they don't find funny. They pretend the silence doesn't hurt. They minimize their loneliness so they won't be a burden. But make no mistake, the pain is there. It's in the sighs after everyone leaves the room. It's in the eyes that linger a second too long on an old photograph. It's in the hands that once held children and now shake as they reach for a pill bottle. We need to stop romanticizing old age as either noble suffering or a golden, carefree era. The reality is somewhere in between, and often much harder. We need to ask the hard questions. How are you really feeling? What are you afraid of? What do you miss the most? And most importantly, we need to listen without rushing to reassure or redirect. Sometimes, being present is more healing than any advice. In this video, we're going to take you deeper into this experience through stories, reflections, and truths that don't often get airtime. Because the pain of growing old may be silent, but it is real. And it's time we started talking about it. Let's talk about identity, the version of yourself that slowly fades with age. It's not just about the labels you once carried: mother, father, engineer, teacher, friend. It's about how you once saw yourself. Aging often forces a person to redefine who they are in a world that doesn't seem to care for definitions anymore. Maybe you were once known for your sharp wit, your strength, your leadership. But now, your memory slips sometimes. Your muscles don't respond like they used to. You walk into a room and forget why you went there. It's embarrassing, yes. But more than that, it's frightening. Because if you are no longer you, then who are you becoming? This is the silent identity crisis of aging. Not one caused by a dramatic life event, but a gradual, subtle erosion of the roles and capacities that once defined you. It's waking up one morning and realizing your calendar is empty, and not because you want it to be. It's reaching for the newspaper to see if there's any news that still feels relevant to your life. And it's hearing your grandchildren talk about apps and trends and slang you've never heard of, and realizing with a quiet ache, the world you knew is gone. You're a visitor now, welcomed perhaps, but no longer at home. And yet, people rarely ask seniors how this feels. The emotional cost of change is so often overlooked. Friends die, siblings pass away, neighbors move, people you shared your youth with vanish, and with them go the memories that only they could understand. You find yourself telling stories to people who weren't there, trying to explain how things used to be, and seeing blank stares in return. It feels like living in a museum of your own life, surrounded by artifacts that no one knows how to appreciate anymore. Then there's the pain of dependency. After a life of independence and self-sufficiency, it's humbling, even humiliating, to ask for help. To say, "Can you read this for me? Because your eyesight is failing." Or, "Could you tie this for me? Because your fingers won't cooperate." You don't want to feel needy. You don't want to become someone's responsibility. But you also can't pretend anymore that you can do it all. This tug-of-war between pride and reality is exhausting, and no one talks about how deeply it hurts to lose even the smallest freedoms. Even the body becomes unfamiliar. You catch your reflection and wonder when that person appeared. The lines on your face tell stories, yes, but they also remind you of time, of aging, of a life moving forward whether you're ready or not. Your walk is slower, your back aches. You sit down carefully, you rise with effort. Everything takes a little more time, a little more energy. And as your body shifts, so too does the way people treat you. They speak louder, slower. Sometimes they speak over you, assuming you're not paying attention. And maybe you don't correct them, because what's the point? That's how the silent pain grows. Not in loud moments, but in small ones, again and again. What's even more painful is the realization that you might be surrounded by people and still feel incredibly alone. Loneliness in old age isn't always about isolation. It's about feeling unseen, misunderstood, irrelevant. You can sit at a family gathering and still feel invisible because the conversation passes you by. No one asks what you think. No one wants your advice. You're loved, yes, but from a distance. As if your experiences belong to another time, another world. And this emotional distancing can hurt more than any physical ailment. And sometimes, the deepest pain of all is watching your children or grandchildren struggle and being unable to help. You've lived through wars, recessions, heartbreaks. You've built a life from scratch. You have wisdom, hard-earned and time-tested. But when you try to share it, it's brushed aside. They say, "That was then, this is now." You bite your tongue, but inside, it stings. You want to contribute, to matter, to guide. But the world no longer sees you as a source of knowledge. They see you as sweet, kind, maybe even wise, but not useful. And that, too, is a kind of grief. You may smile through all of this. You may still cook your favorite meals, go for walks, send birthday cards, call your friends. You may still try to keep up with life, to stay positive. But the weight of these silent burdens doesn't vanish just because you don't speak of them. In fact, silence often deepens the sorrow. It grows heavier with each day you carry it alone. And that's why this conversation is necessary, so that those who are growing old know your pain is valid. You're not invisible. Your voice matters. Growing old doesn't mean fading away. It doesn't mean giving up who you are. It doesn't mean your story is over. But it does mean facing emotions that few people acknowledge until they experience them for themselves. The truth is, we're all headed there. One day, every one of us will carry these invisible weights, and the more we talk about them now, the lighter they'll be when that day comes. There's another form of silent pain we rarely name, the fear of becoming a burden. It creeps into the thoughts of many older people, even if no one around them ever says it out loud. You start to sense the sigh in someone's voice when you ask for help. You feel the hesitation in their footsteps when they walk toward your room. You notice how they check their watch when they sit with you. And you can't help but wonder, are they here out of love or out of obligation? That question alone can eat away at your spirit. So instead of asking, you start saying, "It's okay, I can manage." Even when you can't. You say, "Don't worry about me, I'm fine," while hiding the ache in your knees or the fear of being alone at night. This self-protection becomes a routine, not to shield yourself, but to protect those around you, from guilt, from inconvenience, from the truth that you need more care than you used to. And this emotional isolation becomes just as painful as the physical limitations. You feel like you're shrinking, not just in body, but in importance. What makes this worse is how quickly life becomes repetitive. Days start to blend into one another. The routines that once provided structure now feel like cages. You wake up, take your medications, maybe watch the news, maybe go for a short walk if your body allows it. Meals are simpler, quieter, nights come early, and in between it all there's a lot of sitting, waiting, thinking, hoping someone might visit, or call, or send a message. But sometimes, the silence is all that shows up. And in that silence, you begin to reflect. You remember things that no one else does. The smell of your mother's cooking, the thrill of your first paycheck, the heartbreak that once shattered you but eventually healed. You remember the people you loved, the chances you took, and the regrets you carry like old photographs tucked away in a drawer. These memories become your company. They replay themselves in your mind like favorite songs from an era long past. But the more you remember, the more you realize, there's no one left to share these stories with. The people who were there are gone, and the ones around you now don't understand what it meant. This generational disconnect can feel like a wall, not a hostile one, but firm and unyielding. It's hard to explain to a younger person what it was like growing up in a time without the internet, when letters carried more weight than texts, and conversations happened face to face. You want to tell them how different things were, not to judge, but to connect, to pass something down. But you often find they're too busy, too distracted, or simply uninterested. So you hold those stories closer, like treasures no one else values. Another layer of pain emerges from watching your partner, if you have one, go through the same decline. Maybe you've been together for decades. You've built a life, raised a family, made it through storms. But now you see their memory slipping, or their body weakening. You see confusion in their eyes where clarity used to be, and you realize you're not just grieving your own aging, you're grieving theirs too. It's a special kind of heartbreak, loving someone who is fading in front of you. And often, you have to be strong for them when you're barely holding it together yourself. There's a wordless weight to being the last one standing, outliving your friends, your siblings, your partner. Even when you're surrounded by people, there's a loneliness that comes from being the only one left who remembers certain moments, certain people, certain lives. It feels like carrying a legacy in your mind that no one else can help shoulder. You're the last living witness to parts of the past, and once you're gone, those memories go too. Even faith can take on a new shape in old age. For some, it becomes a source of deep comfort, a promise of reunion, of peace, of rest. For others, it raises difficult questions. Was it all enough? Did I do what I was supposed to do? What happens next? The spiritual journey doesn't end at retirement. It often intensifies. And like everything else, it's deeply personal and often endured in silence. But even with all of this, there's something deeply human, even noble about enduring. You wake up each day with your aches, your doubts, your quiet grief, and still, you carry on. You water your plants. You greet the neighbor. You smile at your grandchild. You find little joys, a warm cup of tea, a phone call, a sunset. These moments might seem small to others, but to you, they are everything. They are reminders that even amidst the silent pain, life continues to whisper, "You still matter," because you do. And that truth must be spoken again and again. You are not a relic of the past. You are a living, breathing part of the present. Your story isn't over, and in the chapters that remain, there is still so much worth sharing, worth feeling, worth living. Let's now talk about one of the most devastating and misunderstood realities of aging: abandonment. Sometimes it happens gradually. At first, people check in often. They call, they visit, they ask how you're doing. But life moves fast, and before long, the calls grow fewer, the visits farther apart. You tell yourself they're just busy. You convince yourself not to be a burden. But deep inside, you know. You've slipped lower and lower on their list of priorities. And that hurts more than anyone will ever admit. You sit in your favorite chair, day after day, hearing the same sounds, watching the same four walls. You remember a time when this home was filled with noise, children laughing, pots clanging in the kitchen, a television playing too loud in the next room. Now the quiet feels suffocating. You can go days without hearing another human voice. It's not that you want constant attention, you just want to feel remembered. A single phone call can brighten your week. A surprise visit can bring tears to your eyes. But those things don't happen as often as they used to. What makes this abandonment harder is how invisible it is. No one will ever say to your face, "I don't have time for you." But actions speak louder than silence. You hear about weddings after they've happened. You find out about a new job or a new baby through social media. You weren't told, not because they forgot, but because they didn't think it mattered whether you knew. That's what abandonment in old age looks like. Not cruelty, not hatred, just apathy. A slow, quiet retreat. And for many elders, this abandonment isn't just emotional, it's physical. Some are placed in nursing homes or assisted living facilities, far from the neighborhoods they once called home. Their rooms are small. Their windows face unfamiliar streets. And while the staff may be kind, it's not the same as being with family. You wait all week for a visit that might not come. You ask the receptionist if anyone called. You check the calendar for a birthday or holiday when someone might finally remember. And when they don't, you pretend it doesn't bother you. You say you're fine, but inside, your heart aches with a loneliness you can't put into words. There's a common phrase people use to comfort the elderly. You've lived a full life. It's meant to bring peace, to affirm that you've done enough. But sometimes, it stings. Because what it really implies is, your best days are behind you. You've had your turn. Now step aside. That idea, that the rest of your life is just waiting, winding down, wrapping up, is a cruel disservice to the spirit that still lives inside you. You don't stop wanting connection just because you've aged. You don't stop needing love, laughter, intimacy, purpose. And yet, that's exactly what the world seems to assume. Even medical care can reflect this. A younger person with symptoms is treated with urgency, thorough testing, and concern. An older person might hear, "Well, that's just part of aging." Pain is dismissed. Discomfort is minimized. Treatment plans are focused less on improvement and more on maintenance. And while part of that is practical, it can also feel like giving up, like you're no longer worth the fight. That kind of quiet neglect chips away at dignity more than most people realize. And for those dealing with cognitive decline, like dementia or Alzheimer's, the pain can be compounded. Imagine knowing something is slipping away from you, but being unable to stop it. You lose words, you lose memories. Sometimes you lose parts of yourself, but you're still in there, still trying to hold on. And when people treat you like a shell, when they talk about you instead of to you, it's not just frustrating, it's dehumanizing. You want to scream, "I'm still here. I'm still me." But the world has already decided who you are now. Despite all of this, most elders still try to show grace. They smile when someone finally calls. They express gratitude for small favors. They write cards with shaking hands. They try not to complain. But inside, many are carrying a lifetime of sorrow and solitude that no one sees. And they keep going, not because they're unbreakable, but because they've had to be. Because no one taught them how to ask for help. Because they still hold on to hope that maybe, just maybe, tomorrow someone will reach out. Someone will sit and listen. Someone will remember they're more than just old. They're human. This pain is real. It is not dramatic. It is not attention-seeking. It is the result of decades of change, loss, and silence. And it deserves to be acknowledged, not just in private moments of reflection, but publicly, loudly, compassionately. Because one day, this will be us. Every one of us. And when that day comes, we'll wish someone had spoken up. We'll wish someone had understood. Now we arrive at the most tender truth of all, the desire, even in the face of all this pain, to leave something behind. A legacy, a lesson, a voice that doesn't fade when the body does. For many elderly people, the silent pain is not just about what they've lost, but about what they fear the world will never know they gave. The love they poured into a family, the sacrifices they made quietly, without applause, the wisdom they earned the hard way, through trial, error, heartbreak, and hope. They don't want statues or songs. They just want to know someone remembers. This longing to be remembered is so deeply human. It's not vanity, it's legacy. It's not ego, it's connection. No one wants to disappear without a trace. And yet, as the years go by, as old photos gather dust and letters stop arriving, that fear creeps in. You wonder if the people you raised will remember your voice, if they'll pass on your stories, if the values you lived by, integrity, loyalty, resilience, will carry forward after you're gone. And when no one asks you about your past anymore, you start to feel like it no longer matters. But it does matter. Every chapter of your life deserves to be heard. There's also the pain of what's left undone. Not everyone grows old surrounded by peace and fulfillment. Some carry regret like a second skin. The career they never pursued, the apology they never made, the forgiveness they never gave. Old age doesn't wipe the slate clean. It magnifies the things we never resolved. And that emotional weight can grow heavier as the physical body grows weaker. There's less time to fix what's broken, less energy to chase closure. And so, many simply learn to live with the ache of what if. But even in all this, grief, regret, fading memories, there is one thing that refuses to die: the will to matter. You see it in the way elders still dress up for visitors, in how they offer advice even when it's not asked for, in how they look just a little longer at the people they love, memorizing faces in case it's the last time. There is a fire in the elderly soul that refuses to go out quietly, and that should be honored, not ignored. We as a society must do better, not just by offering care, but by offering presence, by listening without interruption, by slowing down and making space for stories, by recognizing that every elderly person you pass on the street carries a novel inside them, one filled with love, loss, triumph, and lessons that we would be foolish to ignore. Their bodies may be frail, but their minds have weathered storms we can't imagine. They have seen the world change in ways we only read about. They are walking libraries, and every time we neglect them, a story risks being lost forever. We must also begin to treat aging not as something shameful or sad, but as something sacred. Yes, it comes with suffering, but within that suffering is extraordinary strength. It takes courage to keep living when the people you loved are gone. It takes bravery to face each day when the mirror doesn't show you the person you remember. It takes grace to continue giving, even when you feel forgotten. So, if you're young and watching this, listen, look around you, call your grandmother, sit with your grandfather, ask questions, not just about what they need, but about who they are. Let them tell you the same story again. Laugh when they do. Make them feel seen. Make them feel known. Because you are not doing them a favor. You are receiving one. Their time, their words, their attention, these are priceless gifts. And if you are the one growing old, if this video feels like it's telling your story, then let me say this. You are not alone. You are not forgotten. Your pain, no matter how quiet, is valid. And your life, no matter how different it looks now, is still meaningful. You are more than your past. You are more than your limitations. You are still becoming, until your very last breath. In a world that celebrates youth and novelty, growing old can feel like fading into the background. But the truth is, aging is not a disappearance. It's a transformation. You don't lose your light. It just burns in a quieter way. And we must all learn to see it, to honor it, to cherish it. Because one day, if we are lucky, we will grow old too. And when that time comes, may we remember the lessons of those who came before us. May we carry their voices forward. And may we do everything we can to ensure that no one's final chapters are written in silence. Thank you for being here, for listening, for remembering, and for caring. If this video touched your heart, share it. Start the conversation. Let someone elderly in your life know that their pain has a voice and that their story matters.